Hey guys, this is Andrew with rockclass101.com, and in this week's ukulele lesson, Matt's going to be teaching you how to play Kids by MGMT. So if you're about the same age as me, I'm 35, this song probably brings back some sweet nostalgic memories of when you were coming of age. This was a big hit when I was in college, and it's tied to so many memories I have. Now, I did get a chance to play through this arrangement, and I've got to say that Matt did a brilliant job making it perfect for the intermediate player. Now, here's what's really, really cool. If you missed last month's live lesson, Matt used this tune as the demonstration piece to show you how you can play a chord melody at 3 different levels. What he did is he took this tune and he played it once through as a very beginner-friendly chord melody, very simplistic. Then he played it again a second time through, about on par with what you just watched for the performance for this lesson. And then he did it again one more time, and he really jazzed it up and made it advanced level. So really, really cool strumming stuff that he does. So I'd really recommend checking out last month's live lesson before you jump into learning this, because it's just really cool. And if you're into writing your own arrangements, it'll give you a lot of ideas on how you can take what you're about to learn and boost it up to that next level. So you can check it out by clicking this link right here, or I'll put it in the description box below as well. All right, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit about this lesson. So in this video, Matt's going to teach you how to play the entire tune. But if you want to get the tabs to print off and follow along with, keep for your records, all that fun jazz, that's going to be available at this link. Or you can go to the site, rockclass101.com, do a search for Kids. And also on that page will be the interactive on-screen tab viewer. Now this is a really cool feature where you can hit play, you can watch the tabs scroll across in real time, you can highlight bars to loop sections, slow it down to any speed you wish. Just a great asset in learning this song that much easier. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Matt to teach you how to play this tune, and then I'll see you at the end of the video.
Hello, my name is Matt Dahlberg, and today we're going to work on a solo high G ukulele arrangement of Kids by MGMT. Let's go ahead and dive in with melody A, which is the riff and my favorite part of the tune. We're going to start with an E minor, but you only need to use your ring finger here on the 4th fret of the C string and your middle finger here on the 3rd fret of the E string to start. I'm going to be using 4 finger picking throughout this. If you want to learn how to do that technique, check out the link down below. But what we're going to do is take our index and middle fingers and strike the C and E together. Then we're going to play open on the G with our thumb, open on the A, open on the G again, and then take that index finger and place it on the 2nd fret of the A string to kind of complete that E minor chord. Open on the G, and then take the pinky and place it on 5 of the A, and then open on the G again. You'll notice that the open G is just kind of giving you this filler in between. So the first measure sounds something like this in time. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Going into the second measure, we're going to play a C chord, but maybe a little bit differently than you've played it in the past. We're going to take our middle finger and place it here on the 7th fret of the A string. We're going to strike our C, E, and A together. Then we're going to play open on the G. Take your pinky, play 9 on the A string. And then you're going to play the 7 again, still with that middle finger. Open on the G. Index finger goes down to 5 on the A string. Then play open on the G. So in time, that sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And so that you can hear the first pair here, here's measures 1 and 2 played together. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Going into measure 3 now, we're going to play a G chord. You're going to place your index finger here on the 2nd fret of the C string, ring finger here on the 3rd fret of the E string, and middle finger here on the 2nd fret of the A string. Pluck your E and A together. Then we're going to do this nice little filler. It's just going to go G, C, E, A, G, C. So we're just kind of going straight down the strings. So in time, measure 3 sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Going into measure 2 now, we're going to play this D add 11. All that you need to do is take your ring finger off from the G chord and move your middle finger up to the 2nd fret of the E string, leaving your index where it was. We're going to play the E and A together, and then we're going to play G, C, E, and then G, A, E, holding that chord shape the whole time. So measure 4 sounds like this in time. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And so that you can hear it, here's measures 3 and 4 together. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now going on to measure 5, something cool here. Measures 5 and 6 are exactly the same as 1 and 2. So they sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Then as we go on to measure 7, it's a little bit different than measure 3. Measure 7 is going to start with a G5 chord. To play this, index finger here on the 2nd fret of the C string, middle finger here on the 3rd fret of the E string, and pinky finger here on the 5th fret of the A string. Pluck your E and A together, then G, C, E, A, G, C. So same picking pattern as what we played on measure 3, but just with a different chord. In time, measure 7 sounds like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And then we go on to measure 8. Here we're going to play an everyday D7 chord. Take your index finger, bar it all the way across the 2nd fret, and then take your middle finger, place it on the 3rd fret of the A string. We're going to pluck our C, E, and A strings together. Then we're going to take our middle finger off. Then we're going to play 2 on the G, which is already there. Then we're going to take our middle finger, place it on 3 of the E. And then we're going to take our pinky, place it on 5 of the E. And then take our pinky off, leaving the middle finger on 3 of the E. So a little bit spicy of a measure there. Sounds like this in time. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And the pair now, measures 7 and 8, they sound something like this together. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now from here, going into measure 9, it's familiar again. Measure 9 and 10 are exactly the same as 5 and 6 and 1 and 2 were. So 9 and 10 sound something like this when you play them together. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Going on to measure 11. Well, measure 11 and measure 12 are also very similar. They are actually the same as measures 3 and 4, which were that G and D add 11 chord. So 11 and 12 sound something like this in time. Very familiar because we've already played it. 2 and 3 and 4 and. So you'll notice those are exactly identical. Then from here, we go on to measure 13. And 13, it gets a little bit different with our E minor chord. We're going to play the same start here with the 4 on the C string and the 3 on the E with our ring and middle fingers. Pluck those two together. Open on the G, open on the A, open on the G, 2 on the A, open on the G. So this is all very familiar, right? Normally we go up to 5, but this time we're going to go to open on the A. And then open on the G. So measure 13 in time sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Going into the next measure here, we're going to play this kind of C6. We're going to start with just our 3 on the E string, which we just leave our middle finger where it is from the E minor and take our ring finger off. We're going to pluck our C and E together. We're going to play open on the G. Open on the A, open on the G again, and then open on the E string, just taking that middle finger off. So measure 14 in time should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And if you listen to these two together, here's measures 13 and 14. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now from here it goes on to measure 15, and 15 should be somewhat familiar because we basically played it a couple times with just a little bit of a variation. We're going to start with a G sus2, so instead of the G chord that we usually play, we just take our middle finger off. So we play index here on the 2nd fret of the C string, ring finger here on the 3rd fret of the E. Pluck our C and E together. G, C, E, A, G, C. So it's the same picking pattern that we've played on earlier measures such as measure 7 and measure 3, but now we're playing this chord instead. So measure 15 in time sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Going into measure 16. Measure 16 is going to go back to that D add 11 chord, and it's actually going to be exactly the same as measure 4. So looking back to measure 4, we're just playing that same pattern. Sounds something like this in time. 2 and 3 and 4 and. So exactly the same. And so that you can hear it, here's 15 and 16 played together. Should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And now let's go ahead and hear the entire riff, because at measure 16 here, this concludes the riff before we go into the next section. But let's hear what measures 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16 sound like. Notice there's a lot of repeating here. Should be something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now at this point, we now are going into melody B, which is the verse, the first verse. We're going to start with some of the same chords that we've been playing before. Start with an E minor here, and we're going to pluck the C and E together. Play the open G, and then that 2 on the A with the index finger, we're going to play 3 times. And then at the end of this measure 17, we're going to play this C major 7. All that you do is take your ring finger off and pluck the C and E together. So measure 17 in time sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Going into measure 18, pretty easy. We already played the chord. Kind of starts early, right? The chord is played at the end of 17, rings into the start of 18. And then to complete 18, we're going to play open on the G, 2 on the A 4 times. So 18 in time sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And so that you can hear the pair to get some context, it sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Going on to measure 19 now, we're going to play that G5 we played earlier with our index here on the 2nd fret of the C, middle here on the 3rd fret of the E, and pinky here on the 5th fret of the A. Pluck the C, E, and A together, and then open on the G. And then we're going to play 5 on the E with the pinky finger here, and then 3 on the E with the middle finger here. So it goes something like this. At the end of this measure, you'll notice we'll go back to that D add 11. The way we do that here is just take that middle finger and move it down 1 fret, so you have 0, 2, 2, 0. We're going to pluck the C and the E together for the end of measure 19. So in time, measure 19 sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Going into measure 20, we're going to keep holding this, let it ring at the start, and then it's going to go G, C, E, then G, A. So just holding that same shape, nothing new. We're just going to play through that on measure 20. It should sound like this in time. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And again, for context, the pair of 19 and 20 together sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now, when we go on to measure 21 here, measure 21 is familiar because measure 21 is exactly the same as measure 17. So in time, measure 21, exactly the same as 17, sounds like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Exactly the same, right? Going into 22, the easiest measure of this whole song, we're going to keep holding this chord. We're going to play open on the G 3 times. And that's it. That's all there is to 22, which sounds like this in time. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And the two of them together, measure 21 and 22, sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. 23, things are going to start picking up just a little bit, but it's also very familiar. We're going to be playing a G chord here, index finger here on the 2nd fret of the C string, ring finger here on the 3rd fret of the E, middle finger here on the 2nd fret of the A, pluck your C and E together, open on the G, 3 times on the 2nd fret of the A string, and then at the end of this measure, we're going to go back to that D add 11. To do this, remember to take your ring finger off and move your index finger up 1 to the 2nd fret of the E. Pluck just the C and E together. So measure 23 in time sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Going into 24 now, we're going to continue holding this, then pluck our G, C, E, G, A, E. So in time 24, still holding that D at 11, sounds like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And 23 and 24 together should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And this concludes verse 1, melody B. So let's go ahead and hear what the whole thing sounds like. Measures 17 through 24 should be something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now we're going to go on to melody C, verse 2. It's going to be the same basic shapes, but we're going to add some strumming to make it a little bit more interesting. We're going to start by plucking our E minor chord. Just play the C and E strings again, then open on the G. We're going to do some strumming here. And the strumming we're going to do is down, up, down. Really simple, just on this E minor chord. And after we've done that down, up, down, we're then going to immediately pick that 0 on the C and 3 on the E, just like we did on measure 17 when we played this verse the first time. But we're just going to have that filler be some strumming. So measure 25 sounds something like this in time. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Going into 26, we're going to play open on the G. Holding this shape here, this little C major 7, and then we're going to go down, up, and that's the whole measure. So in time, 26 is something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And the pair now measures 25 and 26 should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Going into measure 27, measure 27 is very, very familiar because measure 27 is going to go back to that G5, and we're going to pluck it, the C, E, and A together. Then we're going to play G, C, E, and we're going to take our pinky off for open on the A, G, C, and then we're going to play that D add 11 at the end of this measure, plucking our C and E strings, so that middle finger just moves down 1 fret to 2 on the E, pluck those 2 together. So measure 27 in time sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and 28 in time is just going to hold this chord. You're going to pause, let it ring for a moment, and then you're going to pluck G, C, E, A, G, C, E. Pretty straightforward, right? So 28 in time sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and 27 and 28 sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and going now into measure 29. Measure 29 is exactly the same as measure 25 was. So we're going to play the same E minor, same open G, and then down, up, down, and then pluck the C and E strings together for that 0 on the C and 3 on the E. So it's exactly the same as measure 25 was. 29, 25, exactly the same. In time they sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and 30, though, is not exactly the same as 26. 30 is a little bit more challenging. What you're going to do is play the open G, and then instead of strumming down, up on this 0, 0, 3, 2 that we played before, we're going to strum it on this 0, 0, 3, X. What this means is this index finger here is going to have to mute the A string. So the pressure is maintained with the middle finger, and the index just kind of loosens its pressure to mute the string. So we're going to do a down, up now on 0, 0, 3, muting that A string. Otherwise, it's the same, but just a little bit more tricky. So 30 in time sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And here's the pair of 29 and 30 played together. Should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Going on now to measure 31, it's going to change a little bit here to what we did in 27. We're going to start with our G chord. We're going to play the C and E together. G, C, E, and then this is where it gets a little more spicy. You're going to play the A string, but you're going to add your pinky finger here to the 3rd fret of the A string. Then pluck the 2nd fret of the A string, taking your pinky off. Then pluck the open on the A with your middle finger coming off, before you finally play that D at 11 again. So measure 31 is a little bit difficult, but it sounds like this in time. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Going into 32, you'll notice it's exactly the same as what we played on measure 28. Still holding that D at 11, just plucking the G, C, E, A, G, C, E. And in time, that sounds something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And the pair of them together measures 31 and 32 should sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now at this point, it's actually concluding the verse 2, melody C. So let's go ahead and hear it in its entirety. Here is measures 25 through 32 in time. 2 and 3 and 4 and. And from here, you're actually going to go back to the riff, which is kind of cool. And we're going to play through that whole riff again to kind of end the song. It's using a coda, so we're going to go back to measure 1, and we basically play all the way through measure 16 before we go on to measure 33 to end the song. Now, before we talk about that ending, I want to talk about how we can play this riff that second time through. Because when you read the tab, the finger picking really translates well. But I want to use a different technique for this second run through. And it's kind of like a picking strumming hybrid. What we're going to do is we're going to use our index finger and our thumb and kind of use these alternating to play the notes. So when I'm playing that 4 on the C string and that 3 on the E that we start with, and this little section here, I'm going to take my index finger, place it here on the E string, and I'm going to kind of come up with my finger, catching that E and that C. If I accidentally catch the G too, it's not a big deal, but I'm trying to kind of hook the E and C a bit with this. And then I'm going to take my thumb and play that on the G string. And then I'm going to take my index and I'm going to hook the A string now. Now, when I do this, if I accidentally hit the E and even the C a little bit, that's actually good. It sounds nice. And I'm going to do this the whole way through that. So it's going index, thumb, index, thumb, index, thumb, index, thumb to play that measure. As I go on to measure 2 now, it's going to play that 007. And what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to strum through with my thumb. And then I'm going to use my thumb on the open G. And then I'm going to use my index on the 9 on the A. And again, if I accidentally hit some other strings, that's totally fine. I'm going to do it again for the 7. And then the open G with the thumb. And then up on the 5 with the index. And then the open G with the thumb. And so that sounds something like this. So all that I'm trying to do with this is set up this sort of hybrid strumming where when the melody notes are on the E and the A strings, I'm going to be kind of using my index finger to pluck those strings, sort of catching other strings as well, and use my thumb to kind of give that filler on the open G. This is called using a ghost note. And so measures 1 and 2 played with this style sound something like this. 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now when I go on to measure 3 and 4, I like to just go back to the finger picking because you see it doesn't really translate as well to try to use that up strum technique because the strings are so much more spaced out. But when I go measure 5, I absolutely do it. And then we go to 7, back to the finger picking. Now I could even on measure 8 do this a little bit if I wanted to. And that's what's cool about this is you have the flexibility, try different things and see what works for you. We go through 9 again, and it's going to be the same stuff. Then we go through 13. See, I still use that technique, but as I go to 15 and 16, I'm back to that sort of finger picking style. But then after you've played it the second time, which if the strumming is too difficult, it's okay to finger pick it again, and you can kind of figure out however you want to do it. As long as it sounds good and you're in time, there's no wrong way to do this. And from there we go to the ending, which is really simple. We go jump all the way to measure 33, and we play one of my favorite chords ever on the ukulele. 0, 11 with the middle finger, 0, 10 with the index for this beautiful E minor chord. And I like to just take my thumb and strum through so that you can hear that as sort of the ending. So that you can hear the whole ending sequence, I'm going to actually play now measures 1 through 16 as the coda, and then go right into measure 33 so that you can hear it. I'm going to use some of these new techniques so that you can get an idea of what it sounds like. 2 and 3 and 4 and. That's okay to slow down a little bit there before you go into that chord because it just sounds so nice. So there you have it. There is the solo arrangement of Kids by MGMT. It's one of my favorite songs to play on the ukulele. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments below. And I'll look forward to seeing you guys next time on the next tutorial here on Rock Class 101. Thanks so much.
Alright guys, so this week's ukulele lesson was a lot of fun. It's one of those tunes that really takes me back, really makes me reminisce on some of my college days. And yeah, it's a catchy melody, a lot of fun to play. So guys, I wanted to give you one friendly reminder that if you did want to get the tabs to print off, keep for your records, that was available at this link right here. Or you can go to the site, rockclass101.com, do a search for Kids. Now also on that page was the really cool interactive on-screen tab viewer, so you can literally hit play, you can watch that tab scroll across in real time, you can highlight bars to loop the sections, slow it down, all that fun jazz. So guys, again, I hope you enjoyed this lesson and we'll catch you in the next one. Take care.